And of course, with Adam Alexander becoming play-by-play on Prime Video and TNT, it did come as a bit of a surprise to us all because he was rumored, of course, wasn't he, to become the lead of the Xfinity Series broadcast on the CW. Now, if you look at the TARS 2025 schedule on Amazon, TNT, and NBC, I guess nothing could stop Alexander from doing the Xfinity races too on the CW, because for nearly a decade, Alexander did the play-by-play for the Xfinity Series on Fox Sports. And looking at Fox and NBC, there's no reason to expect any major changes, but maybe we'll get a surprise or two during the offseason. However, it does look like Rick Allen's departure as well. For him, his future of broadcasting is uncertain, given how many people celebrate his career at Phoenix as well, which personally, I know he's not, whether they like him, dislike him, I reckon they did him a bit dirty. They could have sent him off for the full season before bringing Lee in. Just saying, but Lee's done a fantastic job in the broadcast, and I think has really risen NBC's game up a million times better. But Matthew, starting with you on this one as the Oracle, do you think that Adam Alexander could still be in a role for play-by-play at CW? And are there any specific changes you'd like to see with Fox and NBC's NASCAR broadcast team? I can name a few.
Oh, let me get out the scroll. Let's start with Double A. I don't think he'll be at CW. Obviously, it's a possibility. I think if he turns out to be that booth, the entire booth of he, Dale, and Steve, if they do practice and qualifying, I think that would probably be done from a Charlotte studio until it comes to Charlotte and the 600 weekend where they'll actually be on the track. I think the CW is in an interesting position to go very different because this is their first foray into this. I think they could go very different. We'll see what they end up doing. Maybe they do get Adam Alexander. I don't exactly anticipate it. I hope, as I said earlier, with Adam Alexander, I hope he's able to take real command of this Amazon and TNT booth, and I hope they give him the freedom to do that because we know that Amazon and TNT, they are going to frame this as making Dale Earnhardt Jr. the star, and as well they should. He's the most popular driver 20 million times, and he's still the most popular person in the sport, even though he hasn't driven full-time in nearly a decade now. But I hope Adam has full control of the booth, and he's given that because Dale at times needs to be reined in. He didn't get that at NBC. We can talk for hours about how that went wrong. The 4-person booth and 2 of them being split into different booths was a huge reason for that, in my opinion. Can Adam rein him in when he needs to? That's to be seen. As far as the CW goes, like I said, I think they have a great opportunity to do something totally different. Obviously, we had that report about Alan Bestwick going to Fox for IndyCar. That hasn't been confirmed. So I suppose until that gets confirmed, we still have to put him as someone that's in the mix for CW moving forward. I also would say this, too, about the CW's coverage. If you look at those start times, which y'all talked about last week on the show, they went big on some late start times and getting these races to end well into prime time. So I think the CW's in for what could be a very big year. And they, of course, have started integrating ACC basketball, ACC football, Washington State football, Pac-12, whatever you want to call that these days. Golf has been a mess. No one watches live golf. But this is a chance for the CW to come in for 30-plus weeks and say, we are becoming a force to be reckoned with in the sports media world. So they need to get this right, and I think they will.
For sure. And I think that Adam Alexander could still be in play for the CW role because you look at it, the stretch that he has with TNT and Amazon Prime, I mean, this is a 10-week stretch. There's still 23 other weeks, or give or take a few, where he could be in the booth. And I mean, with his knowledge of the Xfinity Series, personally, I call him Mr. Xfinity because he was in the booth for 10 years and cycled through so many different people in the booth, as we alluded to, and so many different drivers and how the series flows that, I mean, the CW could definitely take him on, and maybe he could be with them during the TNT Prime Video stretch, similar to what Rick Allen did with NBC as well. So But I think you're right there, Matthew. This kind of opens the door for some new possibilities, kind of like with the 2001 TV deal where we saw, Alan Bestwick step up to a full-time role. We saw obviously Mike Joy come over from CBS, but you got to see guys like Larry McReynolds and Darrell Waltrip kind of come into their own and, get into a announcing role. So this is a great time for new blood in the sport, fresh blood, or even people in, kind of who have been calling races and maybe lower ranks. I think of a guy like Eric Brennan, who has called some ARCA races, has done a really good job with doing that. I mean, that could maybe be an opportunity for him, but I think realistically can't rule Adam Alexander out of it with his expertise of the Xfinity Series and with the way the schedule goes. And as far as the Fox and NBC booths, I think what they have right now is good, especially NBC. I really like what they've done with Lee Diffie and Jeff Burton and also, Steve Letard. Like, that is a really pristine booth, in my opinion. With Fox, obviously, I know that we're going to have to prepare for the one day, whenever that comes, where Mike Joy will eventually retire. Maybe he won't. I don't know. But I think another season, Kevin Harvick, Clint Boyer, they have the chemistry. I think there's some things they're probably going to work on in the offseason that will really shine through this season, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, the Fox point's interesting because Clint and Harvick, there was a couple of times during last season, whatever you want to call it, where it went a little bit that way with both of them, and Mike had to pull them both back. And Harvick was trying, but Boyer was trying to take them to a different place, and it got a little bit out of hand from time to time. But generally that worked. The NBC portion at the end of the season with Diffie coming in has really stepped up their game, as we've talked about multiple times. The one thing so obviously the CW have basically taken the NBC product this season in that run they've had the last few weeks at the end of the season. It's just been an NBC product on CW. Now it's going to be a CW product on their own channel. They don't want to get this wrong and bring in I don't think you want to bring in someone fresh to do this and make an error because they've got the whole season. It's not like the cup season where they've got half and half or split 3 ways or whatever, as we talked about multiple times. So you want someone that knows what they're talking about, has got some experience. I think Adam Alexander is that man. But if they do bring in a fresh face that we don't know about, or someone that isn't used to doing TV, perhaps as maybe off from the radio side, and we know there's a few changes going on over there as well with MRN and PRN and such like. So that's another sort of thread to all of this that's kind of weaving away around in the background. But I don't think you want to get someone fresh. We've seen that with other broadcasters and race series before, where they bring someone in. Josh will, British touring cars over the last few years. Yeah. They've stuck with David Allison for the last few years, but we had obviously Toby Moody for a year or two after Ben Edwards stepped down. I'm a massive Toby Moody fan, but I'm not sure it quite worked on touring cars. There was someone else in there as well, didn't there? I can't remember who it was now, but then we had Adam come back. But there was someone else, and now I've lost my train of thought.
John Hindale.
Yeah.
He did a couple,
so
yeah.
He did do a few. He was doing the support races on Motors TV back in the day as well. So before ITV took the whole thing on themselves. So if they are getting someone new, they need to make sure they've got the right man or woman, perhaps. We'll see, but it's a thing that they do not want to get wrong. I feel like.
Can I just say, and Matt most certainly knows this because he's in a chat with me that I've been going crazy about the last week. I have been going back and just looking at how ESPN covered the Busch Series in 2007, because I think that's the best correlation here. They had the full season exclusive to ESPN. They did not just have one person in that booth every week, and this is a 35-week stretch. That's a lot of travel. Of course, they might be doing races from a studio, who knows, but that's a lot of time and perhaps a lot of travel. I would not put this... I would not totally ignore the possibility of it's not just one person at CW. I would say there's a chance they could go multiple people. ESPN that year went Jerry Punch, Marty Reed, and Alan Bestwick. Maybe they do 2 people. Maybe they do 3. Also, as I said earlier, the CW is not yet this major player in the sports media world. They're trying to become that, but they're not quite there yet. Do they go out and say to Fox or to NBC or to whoever, hey, can we work out a deal? Can we get Alan Bestwick on 6 Xfinity races? Can we get Mike Joy on 3? Can we get Lee Diffie on 8? Something like that. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility either, because to Matt's point, they do want to get this right completely.
Here's a quick thought while we're talking about CW. This isn't, obviously, we're talking about kind of lead play-by-play here. Here's something that's popped into my brain for someone in the booth on that side, not lead. He's just retired from a full-time ride and has media experience, and that's Parker Klingerman. Maybe he will be part of the CW lineup, because let's face it, and Matthew Owens, who's vanished but will be coming back shortly, will know this. NBC are not using their pit lane reporters in any way, shape, or form properly over these last couple of years. So perhaps Parker might be in the line for a role at the CW.
And a quick point on that too, with ESPN and whatnot, they also had the Cup Series too that put a strain on them, so they had to kind of rotate through the announcers too. The CW has kind of a luxury where they could maybe sign one person and say, hey, this is our voice, this is our guy, but we'll see.
Let's not forget as well that certainly from Fox's point of view, the rumored lineup going there that has sort of been hanging around is that Alan Bestwick will be joining the IndyCar broadcast as lead play-by-play across the season, alongside that of the two from before. So we've got James Hinchcliffe in there and Townsend Bell. So if there's that lineup, is it worth also maybe looking at Kevin Lee, maybe even looking, as you said, to the NBC's pit reporters as well, putting them up in the booth, as you've been saying? But the point I was going to bring up is actually Matthew did it for me, so brilliantly done. Thinking on the same wavelength. It's a long season to have every race live. I mean, even me and Matthew have been sharing the box this year in leading the NASCAR coverage as well, because it's too much to do it all ourselves. And Matt, you know yourself, because we've been moving around everywhere and we've crossed paths as well. So it's a difficult year to get right with one person. So you either got to go with someone who's really young, who doesn't have a family, or really old and is experienced and the kids have all grown up or doesn't have any kids. So you've got to really get that balance right.
To the Alan Bestwick point, perhaps on non-IndyCar clashing races, if he was available, then he could do a Saturday afternoon wherever, and then he's got a short weekend, and then he can prepare for IndyCar the next week. But this is
maybe do that from the studio. Yeah,
indeed.
It's going to be really interesting to see as well. One more point I want to bring up on this is that I want to ask quickly, does this work better from a fan's point of view, having the 36 races split up into half and half? 3 different broadcasters, 3 broadcast teams, 4 different networks, yes, but 3 different teams. You don't experience the burnout, and you don't experience everybody getting bored of hearing the same voices for too long. Is this sort of, in that respect, a very good deal for the fans in such a long season?
Yes.
Let's go first. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. It is. Competition makes each network better. It's always been that way. Yeah. Back in the day, where CBS, ESPN, ABC, TNN, TBS, a lot of networks. And to the garbage of people saying we won't know where the races are, get a grip. Go on Google. Go on NASCAR's app. Good heavens.
It tells you.
We won't know where the races are. Enough of that. This is going to be great. And you're going to get the best of both worlds in this. As we said, Xfinity gets CW gets every Xfinity race. And that's free, by the way, in 100% of homes, by the way, to the other garbage that's getting spewed about that.
Get an antenna.
You're getting the best of both worlds here. You really are.
And to the point of the recent, I'll get to Adam's point quickly, but to get to the recent point, last few years, especially when we've had this Fox and NBC split, you get to beginning of May, and it's people will get the ball will begin to roll of, oh man, we've had enough of Fox, can't wait for the NBC portion. And then we get to halfway through the playoffs and everyone's going, oh god, apart from maybe this year when Diffie's come on board, oh, I can't wait to hear Mike Joy again next year. Now, as you point out, Josh, we've got 3 separate things and it'll get floated around a bit better. Adam says one thing about Alan Bestwick, he does call UConn women's college basketball on S as well, indeed. But I'm
and he's
sure
got a lot of other gigs
he's
too.
moved around with a bag of money.
Just wave it in front of him. He won't be able to turn it down. I know that for certain.